Another
Greetings.
freaking morning.
Yes, it is. It's day 11. I have to check. Day
I-
11. We're still
I
going.
I cannot actually believe that we've done this for 11 days and we
I
have 20
know.
more to go.
We're doing so well. It's cool. I like it. I don't care. I don't care if nobody else is watching. We're doing it anyway. So what the hell?
It gets me up in the morning.
It is. Yeah. So I'll tell you what we should have done in previous episodes. Go, good morning. It's August 11th. It's a Thursday and we're back again. But we haven't done that yet.
Well, you just did it.
Oh, I just did it. So that's fine. Okay. That's cool.
Anyway.
So what are we talking about today? What is it?
So today we're talking about, in the San Diego Union Tribune and Meetings Net, there was an article I was reading yesterday. We changed this up a little bit, and this will be a short episode, but it was talking about Comic-Con and the fact that for 20 years, Comic-Con has had a session at the end where they invite all of the attendees to come and just tell them what they could do better. So kind of like a complaining fest, right? Something where people could come and they can talk about legit gripes.
Yeah.
A lot of it has, we're about entrance doors, which apparently at Comic-Con this year were a thing. Access for the disabled is a thing. They listen and then respond and then fix things that need to be fixed.
So, yeah. So, as we would say in the UK, they had a bit of a whinge in front of all the people who were responsible for the event, and the people have listened. So, it's a case of an iteration of the next event.
Yeah, and I don't know if I mentioned this, but it's been going on for 20 years. This is something they do every single year. It was probably a little more busy this time because they had been, this is the first time back since COVID.
Yeah.
But then I started to think about all of the events that I'm involved with and manage, and some we produce the whole event, some were smaller parts of the event. Would it fly?
Okay, so let's do the pros. What is it good for? Is it a good thing? We'll come to the cons in a minute, but the pros are.
Well, if we were talking about legitimate gripes, right? There are a lot of pros, right? The ability to sit down with your end customer and have them give you exacting feedback on what you're providing them is huge. But that's not who you're going to get.
So straight away, it means we come to the cons.
Well, no, let's talk about the pros. So the pros are you get instant feedback on an event that you just had. You get, real time, you get passion, right? These are going to be your impassioned users that come to this. But my fear is that in a lot of settings, you're only going to get who are we going to get, Bob? Who's going to come in and sit down and be the person that talks?
Okay, so I know what you're trying to do. Right, okay, so the common internet parlance, if you're really going to refer to somebody who's just being awkward because they think it's a problem, even though it isn't, we would call them a Karen.
Yes, and they want to speak to the manager.
It's an unfortunate term because there are quite a few Karens out there who are really nice people.
Yes, they are. But that's my fear, right? That's my fear. Those are the people that you're going to get. They're going to come in and they're going to come with some, for every one good suggestion that you get, you're going to get 10 Krabby Christies. Right? And they're just so I got to tell you, I don't know how I feel about this.
Yeah, because you're going to get the outliers, the people who feel they've been wronged in some way, projecting that on the group and say everybody's suffering, even though it's just the one person, or that person will feel hard done by in some way and just happens to be very vocal about it.
Yeah, Rowdy Roger come in and complain about the fact that the breakfast sandwich was American cheese instead of cheddar.
Yeah, yeah. There's always going to be a tiny little aspect which they'll blow out of proportion. But the thing is, you've got to take it as a group. So if you have one person going, "Oh yes," and the sandwich is awful, you should be using American cheese. I feel hard done by. I'm an American. But then if you get a group of people saying, "Actually, we found this to be a problem," and there's more than one saying it, and it's a constructive criticism, then that's something you should welcome.
American cheese is just cheddar.
Okay. We could talk about cheese if you like.
But anyway,
Bobby Keith talked about cheese.
well, how do I don't know how I feel about this. Right now, I'm thick-skinned, right? I could sit on a stage and I could take it from the best of them and not even lose my patience, right? I would be, back in the college days, I spent a lot of years as a bartender, right? So I can take it. And so do you sit through the crabby Chris's and whatever, the Karens, to get those nuggets of good feedback?
If you want the good nuggets, you're going to have to bear with the crappy suggestions. But I think there's an important distinction to make, which is we're talking about Comic-Con and how they've done it.
Mm-hmm.
Comic-Con is run by people who maybe used to be in the audience of Comic-Con, but now they're running the event. Right?
Yeah.
So they're part of the group. So the feedback, they're going to understand, they're going to take it on board better. If you've got an event for an association or a company event, the people organizing it may not actually be part of that audience. They just happen to be really good at putting on events. They're not a surgeon. They're not a dentist. They're not apart from the Australian Sheep Shearing Association, as you like to call them all the time. So if you're sort of outside that group, you may feel a little bit offended by what they've said in their criticism.
Yeah.
There might be I think it's, if you're going to do a session like that, you really have to think hard about, is that something you really want?
Or are you honest? Do you sit up on that stage and when, I'm trying to think of another name, when Krabby Chrissy, that's all I can think of.
Okay, that's fine.
Comes up with a microphone and says something ridiculous. When Roger's up there spouting off about the breakfast cheese, do you tell him like it is? Right? And say, look, man, we've got to have breakfast sandwiches for 1,000 people. Right? It is what it is. Right.
Yeah.
Well, maybe those people then head for the exits. And then you're probably actually making your event better.
Yeah. But again, you've got a balance between if somebody really is complaining about the state of the cheese, you're gonna have to say to yourself, yeah, okay, good point, but we're not going to do anything about it because on the list of priorities of things that we need to improve on, that's really quite low. I mean,
right. We need the venue to put ramps at every door, and you're worried about cheese.
yeah. This is the thing. And you're also worrying about security. You're worrying about, people quite rightly are still worried about COVID and I suppose monkeypox now. So the risk of acquiring some sort of condition or disease or something is also quite high on the list.
Yeah.
So cheese is, you have to rate the importance of the criticism to decide whether you're going to take notice or not. I mean, if you're doing that session and somebody brings up cheese, you go, that's a good point. Thanks for letting us know. You write it down. Okay, just move on to something else. It depends. I mean, the thing is, okay, here's a question for you then. So I can imagine Comic-Con finding that really useful because, the people on stage are comic fans and in the audience is comic fans, so they connect really well.
And they've been doing it for 20 years, so I'm sure they get a higher percentage of people with legitimate issues.
Exactly, yeah. But if you're a planner who's putting on an event for an association, especially if it's and their speciality is something you don't know about. You're just there because you're really good at planning an events. Would you actually want to be on stage listening to the audience
Sure.
complaints, or would you just say, okay, we put the show on, if you have any problems, please can you direct it through a person responsible in the organization?
Well, I don't know. So if we did this, let's say I did this with a big client event, right? You would have it would just wouldn't be me on the stage, right? You would have me from a planning perspective, right? You would have the person on the client team that does programming. You would
Yeah,
have the person on the client team that maybe is part of the destination selection, right? So you'd have a wide variety of people that if somebody actually has a problem with the programming, like we had a client that happened one year, the programming was off, right? And
yeah,
all the surveys that came back were all about how to make the programming better. Well, that didn't affect me, but I still wanted to hear it because it helps me with other client stuff, right?
yeah,
And but
yeah,
also it helps us guide that client toward doing better content.
yeah. I mean, feedback's important, and you should really have that. But as I say, if it's in Comic Con, as I keep saying, it's like, you know, there's comic fans on stage and in the audience. They connect really well. But
Yeah.
if you're doing it for an association, you could actually say, okay, the event's over and done with. We need your feedback. Please go to this website. Please fill out this form. Let us know what you think.
But no one ever does.
No one ever does.
That's
Yeah.
one of that is one of the industry's big mysteries. Although it's not a mystery, I never fill out a survey. But the only people that fill out the survey is Roger, right? And he complains. Or
Yeah.
they're all gushing, this was the best thing ever. There is typically very little actionable data that comes out of a survey.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't think we've answered any questions here.
Well, we've explored the topic, so which is interesting. I mean, if for the people watching or the people listening onto the podcast, what do you think? I mean,
Yeah.
is this so yeah, it comes down to the question. Does a what do they call it? A complaints panel? Complaint session?
Oh, I don't know what the
A feedback session. A feedback session.
sure.
So is a feedback session is it just a clear black and white yes or no? Or is it whatever's appropriate and fits in with the event itself? Complex thing.
It's tough. So I see it could work, right? I'm not blind to that. I can see how it could work, but
Yeah.
human nature is what scares me. And I know that the people you're going to get in that room, at least on the first one, right? Comic-Con, again, they've been doing it for 20 years. They have it down to a science, right? I'm sure that they know how to deal with the Karens that sit down and want to complain about the breakfast cheese.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're really good at that, but most associations have never done anything like this, so they wouldn't be good at dealing with it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. I'm wondering. I mean, it doesn't say in the articles, which I'll link to in the notes, show notes. It doesn't say whether they've been pre-vetted. So you might say have somebody just checking out the complaints, and if it sounds like they're complaining about cheese, yeah, brilliant. Just fill out this form, please. But
Well,
somebody who's got a legitimate grievance might be invited to partake in the discussion in the audience.
I'm a big fan of planting a question too, or planting a statement, right?
Yeah.
So because it shows people in the restaurant industry, when the bowl of guacamole comes to the table and there's a chip in it, that's called a clue chip, right? It tells everybody that it's okay to
Yes.
take your chip and dip.
Yeah.
So if you can come up with something that you know you need to improve, right? You don't want to bullshit people, but if you know that we know that the entrance doors are a problem, right? You can have a person in the audience who gets up and says, "Hey, we know the entrance doors are a problem. What are you doing to fix it?" That might set the tone where people actually
Yeah.
know that this is legit. You are looking for maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. So it also is a great way of dealing with a known problem before anybody starts having a really good whinge session. Before they get up and go, "Well, those bloody doors were awful." You get
Yeah.
somebody to stand up and say, "Yeah, seemed to be a problem with the doors," and you can then address it in the way you want to, as opposed to responding to some angry bloke.
Plant a Karen.
That
Somebody
sounds
that
well.
gets up and complains about something nonsensical,
Yeah.
and you can and because they know what's coming, you can deal with it quickly and effectively, but then that sets the tone for how you're going to deal with those questions throughout the rest of the session.
And also, that means if you're already aware of the question, that means you can do some research and come up with a really good answer.
There you
But
go.
plant a carrot. That sounds like a new service is coming out soon.
Oh, wouldn't it be great to hire one?
I could just see people going like, "Would you like an inflatable carrot?" I mean, it just goes too far. We better stop.
They want to see the manager.
Yes.
Anyway, all right. So we didn't solve anything. We spent 17 great minutes and honestly didn't solve anything. But just an interesting fact that Comic-Con has stones to do that, right? That they will let
Yeah.
people in and let them go for 2 hours, which that's commendable. I think it's great.
I think we have come up with a bit of an answer, which is everybody has to be on board for it to happen, and you have to do it in a way that you have some sort of control over it, like plant a Karen.
Yeah.
It's not appropriate for everybody, but there are going to be some conferences, some events where everybody agrees because, again, on Comic Con, there are comic book fans on the stage, comic book fans in the audience. They know how to connect better and they understand everything better. So there's established relationships already there. But
Yeah.
having a Q&A session about what went right and what went wrong does enable you to bring up, to improve on the relationship between the organizers and the audience and the attendees.
Yeah, and then what do you do with programming calls, questions, right? Somebody gets up there and goes, you spent 3 sessions talking about polygenomic blah 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 blah. It should have really been about blah 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 blah, right? Then you're going down a content rabbit hole.
Not necessarily, because again, you can actually then take it into a private place by saying, "I would love to know more about your thoughts. If you want to come and see me afterwards, we'll
Yeah.
talk it through and see what we can do." So it doesn't always have to be that confrontation. You can actually then take it away from that session, talk afterwards, and then you could deal with that person without them sort of having the audience feeding back into him, if you know what I mean. Because
Yeah,
if the audience is getting upset with him, then you might have a problem happening.
or even worse, the audience is indifferent, right? Because it's that, yeah.
So I don't know. It's going to be appropriate for what you're doing. The team who are on stage have got to be in a position where if it's going to be whole time, it's nothing but complaining, then they've got to be thick-skinned enough to take notes and say, "Yeah, you're probably right. We're going to look into this," and so on. And it's just gonna work and be appropriate.
And what a lovely way to end.
Yes.
So now that we haven't solved any problems in this episode,
Yes.
we've only created more. Please visit at the bullet list at the bullet-list.com.
You got it right. And joining, so this has been I think it's been a really interesting topic to discuss. So if you have any comments, come and join us on the Bullet List group on Facebook. Coming into other pages, we've got like Event Planner News page where you can come and leave a comment. Plannerwire, come and leave a comment, and please join us on the YouTube channel where should be broadcast live. Well, recording of the live, which is totally an oxymoron as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, do come and join us, leave a comment, and we'll see you tomorrow.